Ja, guten Morgen und willkommen zu unserem Webinar. Also unsere Sprecher und auch ein großer Teil von unseren Zuhörern ist englischsprachig, daher werde ich dann auf Englisch switchen. So, welcome again to our webinar on digital education and training in these very challenging times. Before we go into the details of the topic, let me just mention some organizational matters. You have the opportunity to ask some questions during the webinar. We will collect these questions, and then at the end we will answer all these questions. And now let me just briefly talk a little bit about our organization. So my name is Chris Pfeiffer. I'm the Deputy Head of the Advantage Austria office here in New Delhi. We also have two offices, one in the west of India, in Mumbai, for Maharashtra and Gujarat. And then we also have in the south an office in Bangalore that is dealing with the more southern region of India. Aside from India, we also deal with the neighbor countries, so the markets of Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, and even Maldives. Now let's head a little bit to the topic and let's go through the agenda. With that, I would also like to ask our speakers to switch on for a brief moment the camera also, that we can see you all. And so the first point is, hello. First point is introduction and welcoming to this webinar. Then as a second point, my colleague Vera, she will give you an overview of the Indian educational system and also the EdTech sector here in India. And then as a third point, we will have an expert, Teja, who will talk about training and EdTech during this very specific and challenging time that we are going through at the moment. And as a fourth point, we have a company testimonial. Our mentor, and Pratik, he will talk about gamification of education and artificial intelligence, and so to say, how to make all this topic fun also. And then in the end, we will have a Q&A session, and for that, I still ask you to send already now the questions in the chat window, and then in the end, we will try to answer as many questions as possible. And without any further ado, I would like now to ask our first speaker, Vera, to take over, and Teja and Pratik, please switch off the camera for now, and we see you later. Okay, Vera, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christoph. Thank you for the introduction. A big hello from New Delhi, from India. My name is Vera Fritsch, and I'm the Senior Advisor to the Austrian Commercial Council here in New Delhi. I'm responsible for innovation for new corporates and also for startups. And today I'd like to speak about the education system in India. Just give me a second, I'm moving. Yes, this is my slide. I'll talk about the education system in India. I will briefly mention digital education, and I will also talk about the education technology sector in the country. So let's start with the first slide. So I'd like to give you a brief overview about the education sector in India. India is the largest democracy in the world with about 1.4 billion people. And almost half of India's population is below the age of 25, which makes India one of the youngest populations worldwide, and which is also a great opportunity for the education sector. Education is free and compulsory in India between the age of 6 and 14. It's a fundamental right. And the overall market size is estimated at about $100 billion US. So when you look at the chart below here, I compare three countries. I compare India, China, and Austria. In the first row, you see the number of universities and colleges in these respective countries. And the second row shows you how many universities out of these in the respective countries make it to the list of the top 500 worldwide. So this is according to the World University Ranking of 2019. So when you have a look at India right now, I mean, there's a huge number of universities and colleges that you find here, but only 5 make it on a list of the top 500. And now look at the country of Austria. Of course, we have only 8 million people, so you can see we have 73 universities, but still there's a really high percentage and high number of universities that are on the list of the top 500. It's 7 universities. So what do I want to tell you with this chart? Basically, India has a huge number of colleges, but there's only a handful of really high quality and top universities. Then there's a huge gap, and the vast majority, I would rather say, offers education at a rather lower quality. And then that brings me already to the next slide. I would like to talk about the issues in the Indian education system. So there's still a huge demand and supply gap. Despite the fact that India has 40,000 universities and colleges, India needs an additional 35,000 colleges, 700 universities, and 40 million seats in vocational training centers. There's also a huge gap between rural and urban India. So it's very, very important for you to understand that 2/3 of Indian society lives in rural India, in the villages. And here you can find underqualified teachers. You often find overfilled classrooms, like you can see on the picture on the right. Some of the classrooms, some of the schools, they don't even have proper sanitation. They have no toilets. And the average pupil-teacher ratio is still 42:1, which of course shows that it cannot be guaranteed that there is a high quality education available. Another issue is the inequality based on caste and gender. So you will still find this stereotypical gender roles in the rural countryside, the female gender role and the male gender role. So in a household, in a typical Indian household, the son of the household goes to school, is been educated, whereas the daughters of a household, they have to stay home, they have to help out in the household with household chores, they have to help out with the farms. So that's also a major reason why there's a much lower enrollment rate of women in schools, and the female literacy rate is also much lower than the male one. So there are a lot of issues in the education system in India, and these issues create fantastic opportunities for digital education. And that's what I'd like to talk about in my next slide. A few facts and figures at the beginning. So I'd like to show you where India stands in a worldwide comparison. India is the second largest market for digital education after the US. And you can see it in the graph on the bottom right. We're expecting a tremendous growth in the industry, 52% of compound annual growth rate. And by the year of 2021, we're expecting a market size of almost $2 billion and almost 2 million users of e-learning platforms. So tremendous growth that we're expecting here. What is another trend? Well, we're seeing more and more foreign investment in the Indian EdTech sector. One success example would be the EdTech company Byju's. The company became the world's most funded EdTech company with a current valuation of $8 billion. So it just clearly shows the education technology market in India is interesting to foreign investors. Right. So here you can see the segments and the projected growth of digital education in India. You see the 5 main segments displayed on the left. And I show you also the projected growth of each segment. Primary and secondary supplementary education is expected to grow tenfold to $773 million. And this fantastic growth is mainly driven by the increased internet penetration, mainly in rural India. Test preparation will be the fastest growing category with about 64% of compound annual growth rate. And all the remaining segments are equally growing very, very fast. As you can see here, there's reskilling, there's higher education, and also language and casual learning. So why are these segments growing so fast? This is what I would like to explain you now with my next slide. What are the key drivers of digital education? Well, first and foremost, it's internet penetration. It's very important for you to understand that India is the second largest internet consumer market in the whole world, right after China. We have about 600 million internet users in India at the moment. And with an increase in reach, an increase in bandwidth, and with the lowering cost of internet, we're expecting an even higher rate of internet penetration, especially in rural India. And that, of course, is a fantastic key driver. Another driver for growth is the current situation. I mentioned it before already. We have overfilled classrooms in rural India. We have an inadequate education infrastructure, and all that will drive the need for digital education in the country. There are also several government initiatives that are available that will drive the sector. Government initiatives that provide e-learning platforms for free, for example. And on top of that, there are incubators and accelerators that provide support for education technology startups, like support in the form of seed funding, for example, but also mentoring and provide their whole network. Yeah, the argument about low cost is of course a no-brainer. It's a low-cost alternative to ordinary education. And the last point is COVID-19. So we'll see how this plays out, but the current situation forced literally every school in India to switch from overnight to digital education, to online education. And we will see how this will play out in future, whether this trend will continue and it will drive the growth of digital education in future. I'd like to briefly talk about key technology trends in digital education in India. So we see more and more platforms coming up. I mean, it's very popular to create a startup in digital education, but it's more and more important to create a very interesting content. So that's where gamification comes into play. Gamification with augmented reality, virtual reality to enhance user engagement. It's very, very important. And there's one startup which I want to click on right now. It's QMath. And this startup is exactly doing that. They're using augmented reality, virtual reality to teach mathematics in a more fun way, I would say, through storytelling and through gamification. It's suitable for kindergarten to grade 10, and it's available in more than 80 cities in India. And I would rather say it's a very successful startup. It was founded in 2013 and has received funding of $16 million US. And if you want to know more about this very interesting startup, you can always visit their website. It's www.qmath.com. But let's go back now to the key technologies that we're seeing currently in India, the trends. I don't want to go too much into detail, but I want to mention another point, which is big data and artificial intelligence. So it's very, very important to keep the student interested and also to customize the content in order to guarantee a high quality level of education. And that's exactly what the startup AdSense is involved with. So let me click on the startup. AdSense uses artificial intelligence to identify patterns in a child's learning habits, and then it aligns the learning and teaching strategies accordingly. So it's very tailor-made, and it's tailor-made to the child's mental and physical capacity. It's suitable for kindergarten to grade 12. It was founded only in the year 2017, already has 11,000 students and approximately 900 teachers that use that solution. And again, I would suggest you to visit the website if you want to know more about this very interesting startup. That brings me already to the end of my presentation. It was very short. I just wanted to give you a brief introduction into the subject. And I'm very excited now to hand over to Mr. Teja Gutluru. Teja, are you there? Teja is not only an expert coach, he is also a leadership trainer, and he's a very successful EdTech entrepreneur as well. So Teja will tell you more about training and EdTech in the time of COVID-19. Many thanks, and over to you, Teja.
Thank you, Vera. I think that was very informative and well-researched presentation that you've just given us. Thank you for that. Hello, all. I hope you're all staying safe, staying indoors. This is indeed difficult times for all of us. And with difficult times come opportunities. And that's exactly what we are here to talk about. And that's what I'm going to be talking about for the next 15 minutes or so. Primarily, Vera very nicely pointed out the opportunities that exist in the current market, given that we're going through tough times. Traditionally, if you look at learning per se, the way learners have learned, humans, and more so in organizations, 10% of the learning that happens in organizations happens through structured learning programs. And this is where your classroom trainings, your technical subject matter trainings, and even some of the e-learning programs that have been planned as lessons, not necessarily courses. 20% actually happens when the learners are learning on their own and also interacting with others and learning. 70% really happens with experience, which means they're doing and learning, and as they go ahead in their careers, they learn by experience. Now, this is where 90% of traditional corporate training programs fail. The reason is everybody is focusing on the first two parts, which is great e-learning programs, great structured programs, allowing them to access learning through others. But the follow-up post that course, which is 70% of someone's learning, that's often ignored. The hand holding that is required. So I learned something in my class. When I go back to my workplace, how do I really implement that generic learning that matches my experience here at work? And this is where I think traditionally learning programs have been facing challenge. Like Vera beautifully said, there are a lot of e-learning companies, a lot of virtual learning programs that are coming up. But the key thing that everybody seems to be forgetting in the knee-jerk reaction that we see in the market is how do you bring back the human connect into learning, right? Yes, the costs are cheaper. Yes, right now nobody's able to physically interact with each other, but how do we bring in the most essential human element? Look at schools. Yes, you can do a lot of e-learning programs, but what about that one-to-one coaching that the student would require? Because not everybody learns the same way. So this is where we see the impact of COVID has been really on learning, which is traditional classrooms are probably no longer the reality for some months to come, for sure. We are hoping it's a year, but experts say it could be beyond that as well. Existing e-learning programs are focused more around lessons, not courses. There are very few people who are gamifying learning at this point of time. And even if they've gamified the learning, how do you bring back the human element of learning through a mentor? Right? So they don't cover all of that. Working from home, this is an essential aspect, especially in organizations, eliminates peer-to-peer learning because there are certain things that you want just-in-time advice. I don't have to go through an entire training program just to get a piece of advice from somebody who's been around longer than I am in the job. Right now, working from home eliminates that. And it's not everybody's cup of tea to be able to go through a virtual learning program. We still hear a lot of people say, you know what, ebooks are great, but I still like the hard copy in my hand. There are still a lot of people who like to do and learn. And this is where just-in-time support, ability to contact somebody and be able to talk becomes important. And that is right now the biggest impact perhaps on learning that could happen in this unprecedented time of COVID. And what we see, and this is what experts are warning as well to a lot large organizations and the industry overall, is right now, I think none of us planned this. This was thrown onto to us. Suddenly, we can have people working together as much as before. So now everybody is into a knee-jerk reaction of, okay, what do I do to bring this online? And this, perhaps this knee-jerk reaction could be a potential risk in terms of how people are investing their money in learning and what their return on investment could be in these difficult times. So to sum it up, what could be the future of training? To make it more need-based. And we hear this often, more and more millennials and maybe even Gen X, Gen Y, the attention span has come down. People prefer knowledge that can help enhance their work, not necessarily long drawn courses. Right? So need-based, custom-made digital learning strategy is the need of the hour. E-blended, we've had a talk about blended learning solutions for almost the last decade. Now, with the elimination of physical interaction for the time to come, I think we need to now start looking at e-blended solutions, solutions that virtually blend into and perhaps meet the need of the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic users. Some people like to hear and learn. Some people like to see and learn. Some people would like to get down dirty, do it and learn. So how do we make learning systems more blended from that perspective? Mentoring, we've eliminated the physical contact. With virtualization, how do you bring in personal mentors that people can talk to? Prioritize coaching cultures in organizations where I'm not necessarily just dependent on my own boss or my own teacher. Can I have access to various industry mentors that I can quickly connect to get just in time help? Bite-sized. I The future is going to be in micro learning, in gamification, and just in time support. So I think that is the future of learning. And of course, result oriented, with 90% of the staff working from home, working virtually now. How could you make learning more performance based? Which means if I'm investing X amount of money in this learning, what do I bring back into the workforce as well? So how do you connect learning into performance perspective? So overall, yes, we are going through unprecedented times, but I think the future is going to be in carefully planning out learning strategies. And I think here is where my company, Udo Now, is trying to change that with the organizations, whether it is schools, colleges, or even organizations. Udo is a mobile app that lets people connect to mentors, access mentors that they would like to talk to, thereby creating a coaching culture. So I'm not just dependent on my own boss. If I need some help, let's say I have to have a challenging conversation with somebody, can I quickly connect with someone that I look up to in my own organization or externally, a pool of experts, and talk to them? Of course, enabling virtual classrooms and events within that framework where I can quickly get into focus group discussions basis the topic that we are discussing. Just in time learning, like we've been saying. If I have a question right now, I'm working from home, do I go through an entire suite of learning program, or can I just quickly connect with somebody and get that help? So that's what I would prefer right now. Again, multi-platform. We no longer live with a dependency on laptops anymore. So can we connect and make it a multi-platform where people can connect through mobile or desktops? And access to global talent pool. And I think another big impact because of COVID is how organizations reach out to talent pools across the country as well. Previously, they would conduct a lot of university-wide events, campus placements, all of that. That perhaps will see a decline in the coming few years right away as well. So how do organizations stay connected to their future talent pool, perhaps becoming mentors, interacting with them early while they're still studying, providing access to them to learn what and shape their careers? I think that becomes the next crucial point as we go ahead. And this is where Udo as a mobile app and an organization-wide solution uh, makes an important aspect. And another critical thing here is the future of startups, and especially in edtech, I think is not in competing with each other, but more to collaborate with other startups so that companies and end clients get a complete solution rather than just different solutions for different aspects of learning. So overall, I think while yes, it is scary times for us, this presents a lot of opportunities for us to change the way the industry looks as we look at a new normal. I think there is a lot of scope for organizations like ours and generally in terms of edtech companies to make a huge difference to the economy as well as how talent pools are groomed for the future as well. So With that having said, I'm available to be reached out at the following details that you can see on the screens. My website is udo-now.com. Feel free to go through it. I'm always a shout away. If you have any further questions, there is a Q&A section coming up shortly. But if you need to reach out to me personally, I'm more than happy to be of service. What I would do now is talking about gamification and the future of how learning can happen. I have the next panelist that I would like to introduce to you. His name is Pratik from Augmented Labs. Pratik, over to you. And by the way, happy birthday. I heard it's your birthday today.
Thank you so much, Teja, for the introduction. And here I am. My name is Pratik. I just hello to everybody from across the world watching us. I am here to give you a company testimonial about my company called iAugmenter. We are a startup based out of Gurgaon, which is just near Delhi, and we are here. We are running for the past 4 years now. And now I'm here to talk to you about the augmentation in learning since the time, specifically in terms of COVID-19, we are all mulling and thinking about what next specifically will come in learning. So I just want to show you a piece of slide here, which is primarily a basic one. We have seen, we all know that one proverb is quite common, that change is something which is always permanent, and especially in terms of technology, it is, and as it changes, it impacts a lot. And we have seen in the last decades and even centuries, training used to happen one to one, one to many. Then new technologies came into play, from telegram to telephone to television, and boom, now internet came into play. Because of the internet, things have actually grown exponentially. And with the internet playing a huge role in our lives, people who don't have internet today are considered to be like from the far off worlds. So right now, people or companies like us, not only internet, we are trying to gauge and trying to get this internet use this internet in a situation where it can be beneficial to the most of across humanity. And this actually creates business opportunity for people like us. And if you see, not on the internet right now, on the phones, people are spending more than 3 hours daily. And this was not during the time of COVID. The opportunity that you're seeing here, the slide that you're seeing here, this is before COVID-19. And we're expecting huge growth, specifically in people spending time on their phones. Before even COVID, there were like more than $252 billion worth of investments in EdTech across the world. And a lot of game-based learning market has taken up. People are more focused on new technologies. Gone are the days wherein a specific e-learning platform where you would use to just watch a video and at the end of the day, just give an assessment. And therein you were certified, stating that you have done so-and-so courses. But now, if you look at the new millennial learner, the people who were actually born and brought up in the Google era currently, if you see, these people are really impatient. They are not able to spend too much time on their phones, spend too much time on a specific matter or a specific learning objective. They are like multitasking people. They move around in different apps. Even if you send them a 5-minute WhatsApp video, they'll try to move it forward and just to come to the point. Today, the learning has become very, very different. Even if you're using technology, every learner right now wants something personalized, something which is required for him. As Teja, my previous panelist, told that people just want just-in-time learning. They want people to learn right away, right now, and which is in accordance to their complexity level and their liking. They want more collaborative learning, and they want to get empowered with this. Hence, new organizations, new startups are more focusing on developing mobile applications with technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and which actually provides the learning environment into a gamified format, which makes it a little interesting to learn. Even in our old classrooms, the teacher used to teach us saying that I will make the learning more interesting and make it more fun. But during this impact and during these progression in terms of technology, somehow some corporates or some companies miss that element. But now, hey, we are coming back with new things. And as you can see in the slide, as I can show you right now, entrepreneurs like us across Europe and Asia, they were asked one single question: have you seen a significant growth on your platform recently? If you see on these graphs, you can see that there are more than as half of the startups have experienced an increase in usage between 1.5x and 3x, and especially in higher startups dominate specifically that number. So more and more people are moving towards digitized learning, as we call them, classroom without walls. Even in fact, when we started out, we are working with corporates and specific multinational corporations. We were specifically having a mobile application for their training programs. Now we've been even asked by universities and colleges across different parts of India, wherein they would want to conduct all these kind of lectures as well as their learning programs on a mobile application. Because if you go into the deeper into Indian democracy or demographics, sometimes people don't have enough infrastructure. I'm talking about the laptops or maybe the desktops, but they have phones. They have their mobile phones with them, and they would want to actually access each and every information through this mobile phones. And why am I saying this? Because none of these people knew that the lockdown would continue for so long. Nobody knew that COVID would be so prominent that we won't be able to get out of our houses. So at the end of the day, the show must go on and the people must learn, and they need mediums. So why not a mobile phone? So companies like us, they are actually working on specific formats like this. So talking about iAugmenter, so we are an artificial intelligence driven, personalized, gamified, assessment-based learning platform. We have mobile applications, we have desktop versions, but hey, we have something really different in which we impart learning to our clients and our customers. So typically, our concept is taken over from people like Netflix and Amazon Primes of the world. We have seen a lot of people understanding a lot of learnings through specific, through storyboards. So what we did was we styled the learning in a very contemporary entertainment style. So right now we have learning series which are divided into seasons and episodes. If you want to learn something, it will become like a web series for you. And in each of these web series, you will have seasons and episodes wherein your learning objectives, your learning outcomes, and your completion criteria into completing that learning will be story-based and also gamified. As you move along, you'll earn a lot of points and grow, and you can see your growth in terms of learning if you use a mobile application. So currently we are working with multiple clients across India and as well as abroad in India, Dubai, Egypt, US, and Malaysia. These are some of the places that we are actually expanding, and we have seen a huge growth, especially in the colleges and the university space, because these people are right now, in fact, even mandated by the government to take their teaching online while the students are at home. And herein, iAugmenter plays a huge role. So, from my perspective, as we go along in this times of COVID, this is going to be the sequence of events. There is an empty classroom in front of you, which does not have students, but just below that, you can see a teacher or a professor teaching everybody at one go through a virtual environment. But now again, even after that virtual environment, the people go to their laptops or their tablets or their phones, especially, to continue learning and re-collaborate their learning experiences on the platform itself. And the last slide, as you can see here, is going to be the real game changer in the times to come. People will move towards augmented and virtual reality, because that is an environment which will be, it will be a virtual environment, but the people will start learning, having experience virtually every subject at their own whims and fancies at one time. So that is the next future. Technology and gadgets will be the new friends of these new millennial learners. So as we feel, as we have seen, I started my career wherein I used to go to a school which had blackboards and whiteboards. But today we have smart classes. Now, at the next level, we will be having mobile phone learnings and video conferencing, in which people might not be there right with you, but they can be there virtually with you in your all your experiences and make you grow and learn in a specified format. So that was about iAugmenter. That was about the new change that we are getting in this atmosphere, specifically at these troubled times. That was about me, and I'd like to hand over to the other panelists, especially Autridge, who will be taking this from my side.
Thank you very much, Pratik, for this very interesting presentation with the story-based learning and the whole gamification of this learning experience. And of course, also thank you very much to Teja and to Vera for great presentations. Yeah, with that, we have now arrived at the Q&A session. And let me maybe start with a question that is more an overview question. And I would like to give it to you, Vera. What are the top universities in India, and could you also tell us where they are located, just to get a rough overview on the geography also?
Yes, of course. So as I said before in my presentation, we really have fantastic universities, especially in the areas like engineering, technology, and science. So if you look at the top 20 universities in India, you'll find 15 universities which are considered the IITs, the Indian Institutes of Technologies. So you'll have IITs in Delhi, in Bombay, in the west. You have it in China in the south. So all over the country, but not only in the big cities, they're also located in the tier 2 cities, which are the smaller cities in India. And you find them in Indore, in Bhubaneswar, in Guwahati, for example. And these universities and technical universities are very competitive and very difficult to get into. And as far as I know, currently, the #1 best university in India is supposed to be the Indian Institute of Science. It's located in Bangalore. And we as an organization, the Economic Chamber in Austria, we have a collaboration with that university in order to foster innovation and research. So I hope that answers the question. We have really fantastic universities, mainly focused on technology and engineering.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vera, for that. The next question, I would maybe Teja, maybe you can answer that. Because you mentioned a lot about coaching also. So when there are so many e-learning and virtual learning options available nowadays, how does peer-to-peer coaching or mentoring make a difference in that environment?
So, thank you for that, whoever's asked the question. I think the primary challenge here is, and I think Pratik also kind of highlighted that very well. Once you learn, once you go through a course, when you're designing a course, you can only make it as customized as you can, but every learner is different. So once they take in the learning through a virtual solution, if they have anything specific, because the issues that I may have as a user may be very different to somebody else. So how do I then leverage off of the virtual learning that I've had and to talk to somebody in person? And I think that's where the importance of coaching and mentoring, as a culturally, India is not open to coaching and mentoring as much as it is in the western part of the world. So I think that is one of the challenges that I was mentioning about in terms of the learning programs and the EdTech companies combining these two aspects together. So there's still some bit of a human contact, human element to work out of the virtual learning as well. So hope that answers the question.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Pratik, you want to add something to this question? Or maybe since you mentioned also virtual reality in your presentation, do you think that with this virtual reality technologies, that this coaching and mentoring and one-to-one can be transferred also into the digital sphere?
Yes, most definitely. People who are, as we are moving on to new technologies, virtual reality, as I mentioned in my presentation as well, it's going to be an environment where I might be able to talk, let's say, a Teja, who's a mentor to me, virtually, just by putting a headset on my face, and I will have somebody to talk to in front of me. That's actually the next step in technology. However, we are wrestling a lot. There are certain infrastructural issues which we are still trying to map out. My team and the R&D department in the company are actually constantly working on this, and right now we are only facing the fact that how are we going to distribute that infrastructure, or specifically those headsets, to these trainers or maybe the users itself. Right now, it's about economies of scale as we grow along. I remember 3 years from now, I remember 3 years back, we used the headset used to cost more than $100. That was the basic one. And now the cost has reduced because more and more countries and more companies are actually trying it out. Once it becomes a real business, people will be able to afford it. We do not want to have such kind of technology where people are not able to take it. So that's my opinion going forward. But yes, it is going to move to that next level.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. And let me maybe continue. I think it was also directed to you. What is the change in adoption of such technology from corporation side now, during or since COVID-19 appeared on the sphere?
So look, anyways, thank you for the question, but this is quite important to know, specifically with the people who with the corporations who are already spending a lot in terms of learning. The current scenario has made physical workshops or trainings quite impossible, because obviously you can't move and talk to those people or come to a class. I know friends of mine who are really product managers or product trainers for companies like Nokia, Ericsson, or maybe Olympus. These are like huge corporations wherein they conduct training workshops physically on specific products, and now they are not able to do that. So hence the new changes, since most of these programs have been stopped currently, at least for the last 40 days, it has been stopped. And now any which ways they have to go on, they have to continue with their work. So now they want a virtual training session from the same physical workshop delivery person, so the trainer himself. They want a virtual training session. But again, because since it is virtual, they need some kind of a technology where that user can actually practice or recollaborate his knowledge once he receives that training program. So now, almost every technology company or every multinational corporation is moving towards digital learning. So it is the new normal now. And the people who used to shy away from using these products are actually coming back, and they are getting more interested specifically with this. In India, the biggest challenge is, if you go into the deep roots, the users who come from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, they are just getting along with technology. They are not well versed. They're just taking it on. Especially with this revolution in internet usage, thanks to the government of India, now the data is the cheapest in the world. So for us, it does not matter how much size or what is the streaming quality that should be managed if I am imparting some kind of training to a user. Hence, it is becoming even better for us. And right now, believe me, I've been more busy from the times of COVID, rather than I was working normally in my office. I have got more queries, I've got more information that people are asking on how to convert entire technology into learning into a total virtual technology. So the transformation is, we can see it, and after 2 or 3 months, you will see each and every organization moving into an e-learning mode, or specifically I say technology mode.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for the answer to this question. Now a question to Teja again. So if the question is, if when my organization has already invested in this virtual learning solutions, what can we do now to leverage this existing investment, so to say, during these challenging times now?
Right. I think it's a good question though, because like what Pratik was saying just now, I think the future is that already there are a lot of organizations that have moved into an e-learning platform or a virtual learning platform. But I think more and more organizations will now pick up on this in the coming months that we are able to see now. So how can the organizations that have already invested in a learning program leverage of this? I think it's important to communicate well within the organization the importance of continuous learning within the organization, because like Pratik said, now there's no physical classrooms that are possible anymore. So I think communication becomes the first thing, and two, making it okay to ask for help. And I think it's the importance comes from the organization, the senior managers in companies who put that message out to say, it need not be me, but do ask for help if you need something. So to kind of create that environment within the organization for micro learning, for just-in-time learning, for using the technologies that we've already invested in, I think that becomes more important. It's the communication, and I was reading something online, and they said during the COVID times, I think the communication within the organization should increase at least by 80% more, which means over communicate with your employees, right? Tell them that we are all there, tell them to learn, tell them to ask for help, and I think that's going to be the critical thing to make existing infrastructures work in current times.
Yeah, thank you very much. Another question for you, Teja, that just came in. It is about what you or you do now also help in content creation for experts. So is that also part of your job description?
So, like I said, we are a platform that connects peers and mentors in large organizations. So, one of the use case studies that we have is this large company that we are a part of, where they are in about 60 plus countries, and they have existing talent pool within the organization. And yet, in each of these locations, they constantly engage with external coaches, external vendors, when they have the talent pool already within their organization, right? So what we do is we enable these conversations, we enable this culture. Content is something that what we are trying to do is partner with other companies that provide content. So we become a collaborative model than trying to only give one part of the solution there. So like for example, I've seen what Pratik said in the meeting today. Brilliant opportunity for somebody like an IOG mentor and a Udo to come together and probably give one solution as we go ahead. But in terms of specifically answering that question, content in written or gamified form, no. But content in terms of somebody else's knowledge, somebody else's advice, absolutely yes, within the platform.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. And another question, which I mean, with that, let's maybe start with Pratik in answering this question, and a brief information also maybe towards our audience in Austria, because in India it's still not that widespread internet coverage. So India is very, very diverse. It's a huge country. You still have sometimes problems with energy supply, in some regions, internet coverage, and that question relates a little bit to that. It mentions that when only 60% of Indians they don't even have access to internet. Basically, television could be also a very good medium in this educational journey, so to say. So, are there any thoughts on that, or is there any projects that are targeting to exploit that market?
Yeah, should I take that first?
Okay. Yes, please, if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea, we are actually working on something like that. We're recently doing a POC with not in India specifically. We're doing with a company called Zain Networks in the Middle East, wherein we were trying to actually figure out a solution wherein any smart TV could have an eye augmenter app, just like you have an Amazon or a Netflix or anything or a Hotstar in like you have in India. We were trying to figure out a solution wherein we can create a box, or we can create a Fire Stick kind of a model in which our app gets installed there, and the people still have access towards story-based learning, and that can be gamified. So let's say if you move from episode 1 to episode 2, you answered certain questions, you got points, and now you're on a leaderboard versus a lot of people across the people who are the users who are actually using the app. So we are trying to move towards that kind of technology, and especially in India also, we are trying to reach out to more players, wherein we could actually have an alternative to a mobile phone as well, which is like an OTT platform, like a Netflix or any other platform that is already in the market. So that's what we are trying to do. But currently, we are still in the POCs or the demo stages, wherein we are just trying to brainstorm, create this idea. So yes, we are on that track, but yet it's still a little far ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Teja, you also wanted to add something to this question, or?
So I think we are quite far away from one-to-one audio video-based conversations through television, right? And because our application brings in users through a mobile app, which has far more devices than we have TVs, I think from a concept of conversation perspective, technology-wise, I think we are far away. But I don't see this as a challenge to be included within a TV network as well. This could be a possibility that can happen very soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question, maybe Vera, for you to answer. Are there any Austrian companies in India in the EdTech or educational sector?
Yes, in fact, we have one startup that is operating in EdTech. It's the startup Unispotter. So I think they're founded about 5-6 years ago. It's a Viennese startup, and they even have a subsidiary in Coimbatore. So I myself, I was lucky enough to visit them in Coimbatore. They have developed a platform where they match students with respective universities. So it's an algorithm that they invented based on AI, where they match the student with European universities. And as far as I know, like 90% of the students, 90% of students come from India. So the Indian market is very, very interesting for them. So I think it's a very good example of an Austrian startup using the potential of the Indian market. And as I said, the population in India is very large. It's a very young population, and many people want to study. So this is also something maybe for Austrian startups to look into. And as far as I know, they're very, very successful on the Indian market. So I want to once again repeat, it's Unispotter, and the CEO is called Christoph Trost. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Then one more question, maybe for Teja. Also again related to this Corona times that we are now with, that is more related to revenues and budgets of corporations. So when organizations or companies are now looking towards budget cuts, or cost-saving measures. Yeah, I mean, how do you see the impact of that on employee learning? Is it so to say a hindrance, or yeah?
It's a tricky question, really, because I think one of the first budgets that get cut usually, again, this is just my experience, it need not be factual, but is learning budgets, and I can see Pratik laughing there, so I'm seeing that as a confirmation of what I'm saying. But I think what will happen in the future is, as in these times that we are going through, as companies scramble to find a balance between revenue to profits and all of that, the natural inclination could be in reducing learning budget. But what they will realize very soon is, as they expect lesser number of people to be doing the same job that was otherwise done by a larger employee base, the need for training actually goes up rather than coming down. So very soon, I think the equilibrium will be in the budgets coming back into learning, because hey, now I have to have my employee do a lot more than what they were doing before with lesser number of resources, which means they will need more training to be able to do that. So I think, yes, as a knee-jerk reaction, we may see budgets go down, but eventually I think that equilibrium will definitely be established again, because very soon people will have to be trained to handle the new normal, because all the training that companies have invested in was for the normal that was, not what has come to us now. So I think there is still a need for training to be looked at as an important investment, not an expense.
Okay, thank you very much. And speaking of the new normal, maybe one further question to Pratik this time. What would be your advice to students or to learners, employee learners, in terms of adopting to this new normal that we hear all the time that is now happening?
I'll be a little frank here, specifically to these to the new people, new millennials. Most of the people or most of the youngsters, whenever they are put towards a test or they have a situation, they actually get panicked. So the biggest challenge right now is with the university students thinking, when will my exams happen? When am I going to get my degrees? Am I going to sit in a placement opportunity from my college? So they have these questions which are still unanswered, because everybody in the world is in an ambiguous position. They don't know what's going to happen after 3 months or 6 months. So at this point in time, my genuine advice to each and every individual who is looking forward for a career in his life, please adopt and new technology, adopt new methods of learning, try to change, and because this, as Teja himself said, it's going to be a new normal. So for every student, try to figure out opportunities. I'm not promoting my company only. There are other organizations as well. But I'm still saying move towards new technology-based learning programs, because that's how, at least in the next 1 or 2 years, and I am being very, very brutally honest, in the time a vaccine comes into place, we will see people resisting towards going into a physical environment. Hence, move towards new methodologies, adopt them, don't shy away from them, and upskill yourself into new things. It's not necessarily that you only read a syllabus of your university or a college or a school. It is better that you upskill yourself in more and more new skilling or new courses that are available in the market, and they're not very expensive, by the way. So that's the advice. And don't worry, it will pass. This is going to pass very soon.
Okay, thank you very much with that advice. I think it was a very good advice towards the end of this Q&A session. And since you also hinted towards new technologies, let's just move briefly to the next slide, where we have some future events, some future webinars that we will be organizing. So in September, we will be organizing one on the topic of blockchain and how it relates to the finance industry. Then in December of this year, we will talk about IT and some offshoring opportunities. And for next year, we have planned again artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, but in a more human resource related content. And then in the second half of next year, we are planning to do a webinar on e-mobility in India. And with that, yeah, thank you again for watching our webinar. Thank you again to you for presenting and for answering all these questions. Yeah, we wish you a nice afternoon. In most cases, it will be a nice afternoon for you guys, or a nice rest of the morning. And yeah, all the best, and hope to see you soon, either in person, maybe already again, or again virtually, maybe in some virtual reality world. Yeah. Okay, with that.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.